OK, we're joined by Andrew Eborn, barrister and Futurist, as our guest co-host.
I absolutely like to be with you again. I love this show. While the whole country is going to rack and ruin. See what I did there?
Yes.
It's fascinating stuff. Can I just do one quick thing?
No.
It was in the no? I won't do it then.
No, you
I was
can't.
going to say, what I love, the Times sort of summarises all the things today. It's wonderful. We're waiting for a non-existent train to take us to our closed school next to the hospital with no doctors. It summarises all what's going on in the news as we speak. And I love your topics tonight.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I've got to say, I've had a nightmare today trying to get insulin, but I'm not going to tell you all
No,
about
you've
it.
had a tough day, haven't you?
Oh, absolute nightmare. Hospitals won't take this, and you can't get anywhere. So look. Well, I'll tell you what happened. One of my mates lost his insulin pen. Phone NHS Direct, no good. Can't get through to anyone. Then you couldn't get a train to where he had to go to get the blooming thing. Then they wrote out a prescription for one insulin pen. They come in packs of 5.
Oh no!
And I wouldn't give him one.
And I would like to thank the pharmacy in Virginia Water for saying we only give them in packs of 5 and left him high and dry without insulin.
Well, no high at all. I mean, terrible. That's awful. We should look into that because I think you should call these things out. But Virginia Water, I'm sure they'll rectify it. By the end of today's show, Virginia Water will be on the phone to say we've sorted it.
Virginia Water's a place.
Oh, is it? I know it's a place.
She'll be on the phone. Our Virginia.
And I'll tell you the amazing thing, in Virginia Water, the wheat chief in Virginia Water, Trisha Goddard, was a barmaid there.
Oh, was she really?
Apparently.
Oh, I love that.
Apparently.
What was her favourite tipple?
Well, I don't know.
Well, she should tell us. We'll
She's
find
been
that out as
famous
well.
for quite some
Andrew
time.
would have asked that when he found that information out.
Yeah, you see.
Okie dokie. Look, let's talk about this. 8 people were stabbed and there were 308 arrests, 57 assaults on police at the Notting Hill Carnival. Now, I'll admit something. When I was a press officer at Westminster City Council, I acted as a press officer for the Notting Hill Carnival. Now, I've got to be honest with you. In my day, and I don't know if it's changed now, there were various committees that were partly responsible for the Notting Hill Carnival. One was at the Greater London Authority, one was at Westminster City Council, and one was just a group of local residents who kind of got together. The result was it was relatively chaotic. A lot of people who were of Caribbean descent had now moved away from Notting Hill, and I understand that Susan Hall, the Conservative candidate for Mayor of London, thinks it should just happen now in a big park. Now, I have to say, I'd be tempted to ban it from the streets of Notting Hill simply because I just think it's just impossible to police where it is at the moment. Now, I'll tell you what they did with Manchester Gay Pride, which was just finished.
Yes.
They've actually sectioned off a part of the city, which was the gay district.
That's why I would say that is the answer, rather than just get rid of something, because I understand exactly that this has been awful, particularly for police officers and things like that, and for people who live there. However, the idea of it is still important to people. So something more controlled.
I mean, I wouldn't ban it. I'd ban it from the streets. But if you remember years ago with Manchester Pride, where they said, "Oh, this is going to be terrible," putting up all the barriers. Actually, it became incredibly easy to police. The charge, I think, is something like £20 or £30 for the whole weekend, and it works relatively well. But I mean, look, you can see the level of violence on the screen here. Also, there's significant problems with litter afterwards. I think doing these sorts of things in a park is sensible.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting. Everybody talks about 1966 and all about the footy. Actually, that's when the Notting Hill Carnival first started.
Yes.
And it's a glorious celebration. 2 million people. What you saw in that screen then were a handful of troublemakers.
That's how I see it. A handful of troublemakers spoiling it for everyone.
And that's what you need to look at. And AI, we'll come on to this later on in the programme, how that can help as well. I think we need to make sure we get the celebration, but make sure it's safe for the people there. Yeah. What was really sad, I was in a cab, Amazing Things, and they said they won't go anywhere near Notting Hill for the whole of that period because they're worried about the violence and so on and so forth. A lot of the shops are all boarded up, and it's like a war zone, which is really, really worrying. We need to address that problem whilst making sure that the rest of the 2 million can celebrate.
The problem is, I don't know if this is rude to say this, but there is a sad thing in our country, really, where a lot of young black teenagers are influenced by the United States of America. And in America, look, you know, you've got to remember something. Whatever you think about America, there was the history of slavery that doesn't exist in the United Kingdom. And obviously, the level of what's it called? social deprivation.
Yes.
Put my teeth in. The level of deprivation in the black community in America is really high, and therefore looting is something that people do when they riot. That was something that's come now to Britain and become a real problem, hasn't it?
It's totally a problem. But also, and we touched on this beforehand, at the moment people are looking for a leader. So what happens is when you get these TikTok rebellions, we spoke about this last time, you get people like Mizzy, who you threw out of your studio famously. What happens is they want to find somebody who can inspire them. If we turn it into good and we find some positive role models, I think we can make a massive difference.
Because I think the answer to when things like this happen, and when, you know, obviously it's not okay what's happened at the Notting Hill Carnival, but the answer for me is never. I always think it's really interesting that the straight answer is, right, get rid of it.
Yeah. No, that's wrong.
That's the answer, get rid of it. Oh, sorry, another fun thing that people enjoy and celebrate, get rid of it.
So of the 2 million, that's what you've got to look at. 2 million people, there's a handful of people cause problems. Address the problem, don't get rid of the whole thing.
Well, I think that's right. So nobody's suggesting that you ban it completely. What you say is you find a better location,
a better way to do it.
I mean, also, you know, I've got a friend of mine who, my old debating partner, lived on Clanrigard Gardens, which is one of these sort of cul-de-sacs in Notting Hill that basically gets sealed off for the and a lot of residents there will move out for the week. Now you think to yourself, that is quite a chore. Can you imagine your house? You had to move out for a whole week.
No, it's a big deal. Like, you shouldn't have to move out for a whole week for one.
You've got to feel safer, and that's the problem. That seeing the shops being boarded up, seeing the people living in fear, is not the essence of the 1966 how it all started.
That's not what it was there for.
Big celebration.
Look, we've seen riots.
It's to bring together the Caribbean culture,
and you want to bring
time.
that. So focus on the good stuff. Let's find some good. Get rid of the poison that there is, and would spoil these massive events for people.
Yeah.
Is it the younger generation that's ruining it for the older generation?
I think there are bad elements in both the older and younger generation. What we need to do is shine a spotlight on some good people. And there are great people out there. What we need to is to get them in the spotlight so they can inspire others.
My co-host at CITV, Leah Charles King, sorry.
King Charles? He did CITV?
She is, a dog and everything. So she's celebrated within the carnival. She clearly thoroughly enjoyed herself.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to be careful just saying...
Yeah, but people wielding machetes talks to an inability of the police to police. 57 police assaults. Now, look, I don't want to be glib, but, you know, police do get assaulted. But, I mean, it's every single year, isn't it?
It's completely wrong. And as I say, if you put the statistics, put it in perspective, and work out how do you address that issue, which is, as I say, a handful of people in amongst the 2 million. It addresses one of our iconic institutions in the UK. Because
we have loads of celebrations all of the time, especially football celebrations, that are all, like, closely monitored and everybody's safe, so we can do it.
Well, I think part of the problem is as well, there's not clear lines of communication about who's in charge of what and when they're in charge of it. So, I mean, when I was a press officer for the Notting Hill Carnival, but I was somebody who was employed by Westminster City Council, I wasn't recognised as a press officer by either community group or indeed the Greater London Authority, Lee Jasper and Ken Livingstone.
Sure.
So they had their own people, and it became a bit bizarre because you go, well, the press need to stand there, and then their team would go, press can stand here.
So, Andre, when you were a press officer, and people raise this every single year saying it should be cancelled, what was your answer?
To be fair, Andrew, I never got that into it because we were purely there to try and police the paparazzi on the day. But I think the answer would be that as long as the people of Westminster were not being disadvantaged by it, and they didn't need to be, then it was fine. But you know, there's an issue with the level of policing. The problem is the taxpayer of London will foot the bill, whereas of course with Manchester Pride now, it's the gay community that foot the bill.
And that's how technology can help in the future. When we start talking about facial recognition and so on and so forth, people talk about invasion of privacy. But that TikTok, which we spoke about last time, that I had joined you on your glorious show, all of that can help because you can spot who the troublemakers are. I reckon if we know where the trouble is, we can stem it at the problem areas without spoiling it for the rest of the 2 million.
You've just said the answer because you've just literally said that they sell tickets for the gay pride in Manchester. So sell tickets.
Well, it does mean sealing. The problem is the geography. I don't know if people who know Canal Street and know Notting Hill, Canal Street is a significantly easier district to like cordon off.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there's no residents in the controlled zone, or there might be 10 or 20.
The real key to these things is jaw, not war. You get all of the interested parties there, get the residents, get the people who want to celebrate, get the audiences, get the tourist office, and say, okay, how do we solve this? And you turn on that sort of basis, and I'm sure the community will come up with a solution. And I think that's the way to look at it. Absolutely, get rid of the troublemakers and make sure that sort of issue is addressed, but don't spoil it for the rest of the people.
No, indeed. Well, okay, talk of spoiling it for everybody. We've got nearly 200 students in Huddersfield.
168 students apparently are not going to have anywhere to go on their first day back. And there's already a problem. They're already under amber, apparently, so there's already a problem with getting students accommodation in that area.
So this place has got a cinema, a gym, and a games room, which is not uncommon, actually, now for university halls and residents. A lot of these new developments have what effectively amounts to private members.
It's not anything to do with the actual uni. So it's basically a private sector that's able to say, we decided that we will get more money if we give it to the migrants, is basically what's happened.
And as you say, it's market forces, and that's the issue, isn't it? You're turning around and saying, hang on, I've got this place. I can either lend it to students, and I might have problems getting money every now and again, or I'll get paid for taking on some other people. If you're a commercial organisation, you're going to turn around and say
But the slight problem is the students' parents are paying for both the students' accommodation and for them to be tipped out for migrants.
No, and it's horrendous. And you'll probably find they've got some rack as well, all going to rack and ruin. So they probably have to close those down in any event. Because it's not just the schools, and we'll come on to that.
It is no wonder that it makes people so angry. Headlines like that, it is no wonder that it makes people so angry.
Can you imagine if it was your son or daughter who was just being tipped out?
No, and it's usually like the first year and that kind of thing. I mean, because by the second year you've kind of sorted something out with your mates. You might be in a house share, so it's usually first year students that this impacts.
Although it is quite interesting now. So in an age of communications, obviously when I went to university, you just turned up on the first day and you met the people you met.
And that's the fun thing about it. So,
you had the halls, didn't you?
Well, of course, now people go on to various apps and whatever, and will even geolocate themselves dating apps and things like that. So they all know each other in advance.
And you're right, it compare you with people. The same way like AI used for dating. You can turn around and say, who's going to be your ideal roommate? And working on that sort of basis. What we need to do is make sure we shine more light and less heat.
Jones, you know what makes me laugh? What makes me laugh? You're very out of date. Ideal roommate, they don't share rooms anymore.
Do they not?
Not most. Not in the new developments.
No, I think they all get their own room now,
All of them outrageous. Yeah. No wonder there's a housing problem.
Tell you what.
That's the solution. It is only that big, I will say that.
I was speaking to an American guy and he said, you know what? When I came to London School of Economics, I shared a room with a guy. He didn't speak to me for the first term. And I said, why? He goes, because my name offended him. So he said, I walked up.
Oh, here we go.
He said, I walked up and I said, hey, I'm Randy.
Okay.
And the man never spoke to me again.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, I'm Randy.
Glorious.
He said, I didn't understand because I said, hey, I'm Randy. And the bloke said, we'll just keep to your side of the...
But we should bring it back if they're no longer sharing rooms, because often what happens is people go away from home for the first time. Being shut in your room is incredibly lonely. So if you could look at that sort of stuff...
They have these communal areas, that's what they have, so that's why they've got the good communal
get your space and so on and so forth, but sometimes having a roommate can be an advantage. And I think they should look at that.
The only problem with university halls of residence was every blooming week, well, at least 2 or 3 times a week, someone would get drunk and light up a spliff, and the fire alarm would go off 4 in the morning.
I never went to uni.
You could pick up you could lift up my bed. There was storage underneath. So when the fire alarm used to go off, I used to get up, pull this and get into a further bed I'd fashioned under the actual one. Shut it like a coffin.
And then we'll just say, never ever do that because it might be a genuine fire alarm. So let me just make that really clear.
So then what would happen was, if the fire brigade came checking that everyone had evacuated...
It's a good job it weren't a real fire alarm.
Oh, I'd tell you, it happened that many times. Oh. And the university used to get charged £1,600.
£1,600? Oh, I suppose that's right.
Mind you, I will tell you one awful story from Kingswood Hall at Royal Holloway.
Yes.
Somebody undid a fire alarm, threw it into the bedroom of a mate for a bit of a laugh, and because the priority system, Egham Fire Station allowed 2 people to burn to death in order to go to the false alarm at the university.
That is awful.
And the culprit went to prison.
Right.
Anyway, that was...
On that right note.
I'm happy on you. Thank you.
Lovely story.
No, it is incredibly dangerous. You need to look at that sort of stuff, and it's not as bad as knocks on the door and hello, I'm Randy. I love that.
Yes. Hello, I'm Randy. Yeah, we'll go back to that one.
Hey, I'm Randy.
Anyway, speaking of Americans, Donald Trump has hit the
I've heard of him.
Have you heard his rap, though?
Amazing.
Do we have it? Do we
I
have
hope
his
we
rap?
have. We've got it's an AI rap, isn't
Come
it?
on, here we go.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah. Trump the Don back at it again. Shout out Big Tucker, Alex Stein, JP Sears, Jordan Peterson, and Ben Shapiro. They call me racist, fake news. But Kodak Mazo, I got love for my Haitians. They cool. The media full of these federal agents. Break rules. America first, these candidates hate it. And hate you. Keep it 10 toes down, stay true. Everybody, they were loving me. To the media was switching up on me. Now they all trying to comfort me and get a little piece of my money. Greatest president of all time. If you think not, you're mistaken. The only president I love more is than Blue Honey, Ben Franklin's.
Not a bad song, that.
That is a bit of a laugh, but we talked last time about Peter Cushing and Grand Moff Tarkin from Star Wars, the fact that he was the first person to act in a film after his death and his estate was paid.
Yes.
The problem is with something like that is that potentially the person who is being copied may not necessarily get paid even if they get to the top of the charts.
This is the interesting thing. Actually, there are much better AI versions where you can turn around and it actually looks as though Trump is singing. If you haven't seen it, go and look at Johnny Cash singing Barbie.
Voice,
have you seen? It is, and they can sample the voice. And Johnny Cash singing Barbie is brilliant. It looks
there was also an example, I think, on America's Got Talent, where they got a real singer and got Simon Cowell's face. So when you looked up at the screen, you could just see Simon Cowell singing.
That is the future of entertainment. What's happening with all these actors going out on strike, and we've got a lot of sympathy for them. The big thing they're concerned about is not just about residuals, but about AI, artificial intelligence, taking over their jobs. And you're right. You can now mimic. You do one bit of recording, you've got somebody forever. I was on with the wonderful James Well very recently, and we said, look, every bit of recording he's ever done, we could keep James Well in perpetuity doing the James Well show.
Well, I know somebody, and I've got to anonymise this, but I've got a friend of mine who works for a major computer games manufacturer who has to read out a lot of names. You might be able to guess. What he gets up to. But of course, AI is potentially going to replace that, because whilst you don't have the name Andrew Eborn, you might have Andrew Jones and Philip Eborn. So you can start putting it all together.
No, absolutely. And that's the worrying thing. So it's been used for tremendous good. And we've had Harrison Ford, he was basically taken back to the age of 35 in the most recent movie that he did. And he's in his 70s. And they can de-age people. They can do people's voices. You have Obi-Wan Kenobi. You have that sort of the voice of Darth Vader. Afterwards, you can make people sound younger. The way to look at it in the future is to monetize it. If you understand what the technology can do, and I talk around the world about AI. I'm going down to Cannes for the TV festival there, where big focus on AI and how we can harness that sort of stuff. What we need to do is look at the commercial side. It is here to stay. Understanding the opportunities, but also the risks is really
essential. But the danger is, and I don't want to make it sound like we're just talking about ourselves, but the risk is that as it stands legally, we're in a difficult situation. If this company decided they just wanted to make us an AI version, they could probably do it, couldn't they?
As you know, my background is as an intellectual property lawyer, so it's just as well we're here. And I'll tell you what happens, it's all to do with your contract. Nowadays, what people are doing, I know it's exciting stuff, but contracts...
It's not exciting, it sounds terrifying.
Only if you give away all of your rights in perpetuity. And they always say, in all media, whether now known or hereafter invented, throughout the universe, we'll fight over the black hole. What you need to do is make sure you protect your rights, get your rights right.
But I've been signing forms like that for 20 years.
And you shouldn't. So come and talk to me. I basically work with lots of creative side, but also on the production side as well. You're turning around to people and make sure that the money makes sense. If it follows the commercial side on a sensible basis, that would be interesting.
I downloaded ChatGPT because somebody told me about this, and I went, write me a A-level essay on climate change, and it just went doom, 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 doom.
It did. Was that what it said? Doom, doom, doom. They can do better than that.
And I know,
but you're right.
But I know kids who've submitted it submitted AI-generated content.
And you are doing. That's what
And
they're
the
doing.
great thing is, two solutions to that is one is they've got a way now that AI can spot the people who've done
Yeah,
that.
turn it in used to.
And so it can turn it in on itself.
Okay.
But also what's going to happen now is we're going to get a skill which a number of people have been talking about is not just about writing things, because that's a great first draft. What you're going to do is teach people how to speak, how to present. So get kids up there. They should turn around and say, OK, we've got your written thing. Very good. Now let's talk and let's see that.
I
That
think
is
so.
the future.
We should be doing that anyway.
We should be doing that.
Do you know what? I put me into AI and said, like, write a page on me. And,
Yes.
it morphed into Holly Willoughby. Everything about Holly Willoughby.
Wasn't that interesting?
And I was like, well, I must be very similar to Holly Willoughby. I'll take that.
Somebody said that the AI that works out what songs you'll like is comprehensively ruined the minute you accept a Taylor Swift song. Everybody likes Taylor Swift.
Oh, no.
Anyway, what's coming up, Danielle?
Coming up, we'll be talking about the transgender cricketer who is to play for Canada. Stay tuned.
Hello, and welcome back. This is Saturday Night Talkaway. You having a good time?
I'm having a good time.
It's all right, isn't it? We could
It's a good night.
talk about AI-generated Donald Trump.
Hey.
AI.
It's got to be good.
Properly Mancunian. Properly
I'm ready,
Mancunian.
right? I'm going to do some magic now. Ready? Ah, nearly. I just transitioned our background to nighttime, which we're not supposed to talk about, but there you go.
Well, how are people going to have not noticed that?
Anyone listening just went, why did she just click her fingers? We made the background
She just loves
into
it.
nighttime.
Just loves it.
We've got a brilliant guest on who we have a lot of time on this show, and we've a lot of time for her as well. This is Heather Herbert. Can you hear us?
Yay!
Hello, Heather. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you two?
Good, thank you. Looking
Living
very
the dream.
peaceful
Living the
and
dream, Heather.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the time when you can make me AI and I can have a Saturday night off.
Oh, she's good. Now we've got a few of trans stories this Saturday night, but we'll start with the transgender cricketer who's to play for Canada. Now I think this is very interesting. Am I allowed to go into this kind of detail, Chuck, for the time of evening? Yeah. Okay. So apparently, the concentration of testosterone in her serum has to be less than 5 nanomilliliters per litre continuously for a period of at least 12 months, and that she is ready, willing and able to continue to keep it below that level for as long as she continues to compete. I just still get very uncomfortable about biological men competing in women's
Just to be
sports.
clear, is that the only thing this person has to do?
I think, it appears to be. So this is Danielle McGahey. McGahey, have we said that right? Who's 29 years old and says that she's fulfilled all of the eligible criteria that the International Cricket Council has made for male to female transgender players.
She looks like
before the
bagpuss.
event in Los Angeles. So there's obviously other kind of things. I mean, she is, she's socially transitioned to a woman in 2020. Mm-hmm. Doesn't seem that long ago, but
I mean,
started medically transitioning in 2021.
But this just looks like a big fella, doesn't it, really?
Well, that's a bit cruel, but...
That's not cruel, it's accurate.
We're looking at a picture now of Danielle. What's your thinking on this, Heather?
Well, as you say, she's met all the criteria necessary to play in the women's team, so why shouldn't she play in the women's team?
Because
it says on average that it's proven that even 14-year-old boys are faster and stronger than world-class female athletes.
Yeah, if you look at the Lionesses...
That's why I have a problem with it.
If you look at
it's all about the sport for me.
If you look at the Lionesses, people made jokes about the fact that a group of teenage boys beat them, but in reality, because of the physical strength of teenage boys, that's not surprising at all. The critical thing with the Lionesses, when women play against women, actually the level of skill will come out because the additional body mass, if you like, isn't a factor.
And isn't that the secret to the whole debate? Because we have this all the time. First of all, there should be respect across the board, and you're absolutely right. Don't mock people because of how they look. I think the reality is that, and I understand people have tremendous struggles with having to do this, but there's a reason that there's a man sport and a female sport.
I don't think it's as if...
And it's that sort of side,
everybody
isn't it?
makes it political.
And it should be political.
And it isn't political. It is just not fair.
Exactly, and it's based on, it's rather like having a bantamweight and a heavyweight.
Yeah,
you don't put the two together.
They don't do it. They're not
so
allowed
work on that sort of basis. So Heather, I mean, maybe I could ask Heather.
But I heard a terrible thing, and I'm going to put this to Heather, about Leah Thomas, who once again has socially transitioned, which means she's just a man, effectively. Just
so no medical transition.
No medical changes or whatever. But apparently, because women have big hips and they want to wear very skin-tight swimming costumes in competitive races, they really have to sort of shimmy into these blooming things. And apparently those people at Penn State University who said, look, we're not very happy with a 6'3" bloke being in the women's changing room while we do it, because it can take 10, 15 minutes to put these on. Apparently they were told that they'd either be expelled or have to go to transphobia training.
Yeah, and again, we have to be right on. I mean, it's fascinating to hear what Heather has to say about that, because I think the whole background to male and female sport was it precisely because of that. You've got to be fair so you compete.
It would just be sport. It wouldn't be male and female.
And I don't mind about darts, because it does not depend on that sort of stuff. But and maybe cricket, maybe one of those sort of things. But Heather, what is the answer then to that? That's the reason that people made the distinction in the first place, was because of physical strength, and that's why you had two different things. What are your views?
Well, we'll talk about the swimmer first, if that's okay. Yeah. I don't know about the placing in question, but all the changing rooms I've ever been in have had single cubicles. So when people get changed, they get changed in a cubicle.
Yeah. Well, for swimming...
Well, I mean, let's just be clear. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I suspect...
It'll be because the trainers and everything...
I suspect they didn't make the complaint on the basis of it being fake, did they, really? You know, they're much more likely to be telling the truth, and they apparently were embarrassed doing this. But the critical point was... This is biologically a man who says he's a woman, and the solution to the problem is to give training to the girls who are embarrassed getting naked in front of them.
And you're right. And the point is that it's not about the cubicle and respect on that sort of side. It's about the fundamental reason that the sports were distinguished in the first place.
That's how I feel about it.
And I think that's right. So Heather, just to pick up on that point, the reason that male and female were separated in those ways was because of physical strength originally. What's your answer to that?
So when you transition, you lose the physical strength. Your muscle mass decreases as a result of losing testosterone.
Yeah, but you've been through puberty, haven't you? So
yeah,
you've already had the advantages.
I'm trying to think of some extreme examples.
But what I don't understand, if that's true, if all this testosterone, if removing the testosterone and putting estrogen in makes you physically weaker, why is it that time and time again, middle-ranking sports people who transition from being a man to a woman suddenly are breaking world records? You would have thought if the testosterone or estrogen was working, what would happen is they would become middle-ranking sports stars in their new gender.
Why then are not every middle-ranking sports person transitioning?
Well, because some people don't want to transition. Well,
so you agree it's a natural thing then?
Sorry, I think we made a jump there. No.
Sorry?
No, I'm sorry. I don't believe that Leah Thomas is cheating. I just believe that she is biologically a man.
I don't think that. I don't think it's about cheating.
I believe these are heartfelt beliefs and heartfelt desires to change gender. The big problem is
it's not fair.
That it's not fair.
Let me help Heather out on this one, because I think it's really, really helpful. First of all, I think we need to come with respect for all these sort of things. So I totally get that. I do not know whether you're right about the physical strength side of it. I tend to suspect when I see somebody who has transitioned and beating the world record for weightlifting by a big degree, that there may be an issue about that sort of side on strength. What maybe this could be the solution then, is no longer basing it on sex or gender or whatever. Should we be basing these sporting things on strength?
Yeah, I think changing the criteria to have it on categorised by individuals' ability is a good idea.
Why not have a separate category for trans people?
Because there's not that many of us.
But there's not that many people.
I would be a world champion, and I am in no way, shape or form a world champion.
But in certain categories in the Paralympics, there aren't many people competing.
Yeah. Can I just, following on from that, great point, Andre. Following on from that then, Heather, if you accept that it's based on strength, to the extent that you get a weightlifter who is clearly much stronger than anybody ever, which is why they both broke the world record by a big margin, that clearly then, following your argument, must be unfair. Is that right?
I think things should be classified in degrees. Yeah, there's actually not enough evidence yet to say if testosterone loses your strength to compare it, to make it comparable with female sports. And I think the actual solution is to have research into that and find out if it's true or not.
That female weightlifter that looked like Meatloaf, I mean, she was absolutely enormous. I mean, no woman is that size.
And I think you agree there, Heather, because I'd say, I'm trying to help you out on this one. You would agree that to the extent that that person was clearly much stronger, that's why they beat the world record by such a big thing. Using your argument, that wasn't fair, was it?
Well, as I say, I think things should be classified by ability.
Yeah, so that wasn't fair.
It's a shame because we've got a couple more subjects we'd really like to talk to you about, Heather. But do you know what? I'm sure we will see you again very soon if we can steal another Saturday night from you, if that's okay.
She's up for it.
Fantastic, we love it. Gotta be good. Nice to see you, Heather. Thank you. Take care.
Great. Okie dokie. Right, so safaris in cemeteries. We've got a new TikTok sensation of people going around. Well, not people, one person going around cemeteries and whatever. Look, joined by John Joe Namara, who is a cemetery
John
safari.
O'Namara, who is a cemetery safariist.
Yes, you've got
Is
it.
that right?
Well, John O'Namara, yeah,
Okay.
and I suppose I do run a TikTok series called Cemetery Safari.
Oh, you do?
I do,
It's
yeah.
fantastic, by
Thank
the
you so
way.
much,
And
thank
you know
you.
whose street it is right up?
Whose?
His street.
Oh yeah,
Brilliant. Well, thanks for having me on.
I used to be an altar boy at funerals, so I've been to large numbers of funerals, and also I like graveyards, and I'll tell you why I like graveyards, because they are one of the places where ordinary people get to make their own memorial to their own family members. So most people who die, remember, don't get a big statue, don't get a fountain, don't get a painting in the Royal Society, but what they do get is they get a small plaque or a headstone, if they're very lucky, made to the highest specifications that their family can muster. And I think that is a beautiful thing. And the thing is with all of it, you know, the people in the graveyard are not evil, they're just dead.
That's true. It's holy ground, so to speak. So hopefully they're at rest, which is always a good thing. Because obviously one of the questions I get a lot is, you know, do I ever, see any apparitions or any ghosts?
And do you?
Not inside a cemetery. I have on the outside walking in New York. There's a cemetery called Holywood Cemetery.
There is indeed, absolutely.
Have you been there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you
Phenomenal.
go. So we're all tapophiles here.
There you go.
Which is obviously the idea of, liking cemeteries
It's
for
called a
aesthetic value.
tapophile.
Tapophiles.
A tapophile.
Yeah, we can tap into that.
I tap in. Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Very good.
I like that. I'm going to write that down.
And tapophile. It's very good. So dead interesting, obviously.
Very good. True.
What got you started? Because you used to be in a Japanese boy band, didn't you?
Well, you have done your research.
I know this stuff. I know my Japanese boy bands.
Well, of course, yeah, absolutely. I'm now retired as a Japanese pop star.
Or as a boy band member.
As a boy band member. I didn't say
Is
about
it
pop
because
star.
you're not
Might be a
boy
bit too far.
enough
Yeah,
now?
well, that's it. Yeah, I know. I've gone boy man.
Yeah.
Not keen on that. Actually, it was walking around Pellisher Cemetery in Paris. One of my favourite people of all time, Oscar Wilde.
Yes.
I went to visit his grave.
And what did he say?
Well, he said a lot of things in life, but there's an urban legend by which if you kiss his grave and run around it 3 times, you'll have the best sex in Paris you'll ever have.
Is that what happened?
Is it true?
Well, hold the thought here.
Oh, you see, he had us then.
So many people did that the lipstick marks, men and women, eroded the limestone, that they've now had to put up a perspex glass around it to protect the gravestone.
And then
So now you can't
that's what
kiss
happened.
it.
But there is a fake grave of Oscar Wilde in London, isn't there? Just off the Strand.
That's right, yeah. That's
That probably not
Maggie
going to happen with
Hambling.
your sex in Paris.
Maggie Hambling, it's a sculpture, and
I don't know. Run round it, get on the Eurostar.
well, that's the idea. Who needs to get on the Eurostar? Yeah, that's next to Charing Cross, but actually that gets vandalised quite a lot. Actually, people
does it?
aren't a big fan of that Oscar Wilde sculpture.
Why?
They think it's ugly.
Oh.
It is
Looks
quite
like
ugly.
snakes are coming out of him.
Well,
or
snakes are
something.
good when Medusa, when that sort of stuff. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there's
but you didn't finish the story about the sex, and how did that come about? And was it true?
Right. Well, there's an urban legend, but that was the first piece of camera I did. I just happened to be wandering around Pelish's cemetery as one does, and I thought, I know, I'm going to film this.
Yeah, and then it took off.
From then on in, my cemetery safari began, and I'm still.
So
Who's your favourite? Who's your favourite grave?
But that's a really good question. Thank you so much. There's so many, but I love the Brompton time-travelling tomb of a lady from the 18th century, and apparently we've lost the key now, so we can't actually access and enter the tomb. But apparently, it either time travels one back to another period,
right,
or it links you as a portal to one of the other magnificent 7 cemeteries of London.
Oh, glorious!
So
does
they
that-
think
does
it's
that
a
actually
time
work?
travel portal.
I don't know yet. We need to find the key.
I think, and then go around Oscar Wilde 3 times, and you're gonna
Well, have sex and then time travel.
I love it.
Then go back round the.
So what other places have you been to?
Oh, well, I'm really across London, essentially. So I did one at Brookwood Cemetery a couple of days ago, and I was talking about the Necropolis Railway, which essentially started in the mid-1800s, and they needed to have new cemetery burial grounds outside of London because obviously the ones in the existing graveyards were overfilled to capacity and were actually causing a lot of severe health problems, and people were actually dying because of that. So they invented the Necropolis Railway, which went from...
Necropolis Railway, fantastic stuff. Where did it go from?
Waterloo to Brookwood Cemetery, which is in Surrey. So I took a trip there. It's also where John Singer Sargent is buried as well, so obviously great Edwardian painter.
Yes.
And it was brilliant. I got a little bit lost though, because it is the largest burial ground in the UK and was once the world, but I think we've been overtaken now.
It's amazing, actually. It's sad. I had a friend of mine who died recently, and they wanted to put his ashes onto his family's grave, but of course the grave had been taken over by the local council and given away from the church. So what happens is, if a church abandons a graveyard for I think it's 5 years, the local council takes it over, but they tend not to allow them to be altered in any way, because by that time they're full. Anyway, we just turned up and poured the blood against the wishes.
No one's going to complain, really, are they? Let's be honest.
And do you get any pushback then from people? Do people object to the fact you're going around these cemeteries?
No, I think people generally love it, actually. Well, hopefully. I mean, TikTok seems to be doing quite well for cemetery safari.
Well, I like the clown one.
Yes.
Where you can dance on the grave.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Dance on the grave.
So they've got this grave, like a coffin-shaped...
Yes.
What would you say it was? Like a...
It's shaped like a coffin.
But
and it's a
you can
xylophone.
stand on it.
It's a xylophone. So
brilliant.
it's an art piece by a person called Henry Crocatis. It was designed about 12 years ago.
Right.
And it's in honour of Joey Grimaldi.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, Joey Grimaldi. So
fantastic stuff.
Angel, next to Angel Station.
And he doesn't mind people dancing on his grave, is that what you're saying?
Technically, it's not his grave. It's an art structure piece.
Okay.
Stuck musically.
I was going to say, you
It's
can have
on
a
the
dance.
cheek.
Yeah.
You're dancing on someone's
You can have a
grave.
dance macabre.
I think we've got a clip of that. Let's take
Let's
a
have a
look.
look.
Cheers, thanks.
Oh, it's a random clip. It's
Behind
not
me
that.
lay the grave of the great 19th century circus performer Andrew de Croo, here at Kensal Green Cemetery in London. De Croo was renowned for his daredevil horse riding stunts, some of which are still performed to this day. But ever the showman in real life, he is still remembered as one in death. This Greco-Egyptian inspired mausoleum, originally designed for de Croo's wife, is one of the largest and most decorated in the cemetery. Condemned in 1856 as a piece of ponderous coxcombry, the mausoleum features a beehive, various mourners, and the masks of comedy and tragedy. So if you're ever in the area, roll up and come and pay your respects to Mr. de Croo.
It's so good. They're all like that. They're very good at it.
Very
So
sweet. Thank you
just
for looking at them.
Plug
Thank you
your
for watching.
TikTok. Plug your TikTok.
Okay, so it's called
for us.
at Cemetery Safari.
There we go.
Easy.
Fantastic.
Easily found. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for
Lovely
having me.
seeing you. Well done.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
Good to see you.
Can I
Thank
just
you.
very quickly
Yeah,
ask
sure.
about the box that we can't open? What's that about?
So that's Joanna Southcott.
Right.
Essentially, there's a box that she left. She was a famous sort of, I don't know, you could say mind reader.
Right.
All right.
Of her age.
And she
Dickens is
said
very
you can't
involved in
open
that.
the box unless
You've got 28 bishops of the Church of England present, and they need to sit down and really talk about if they want to open the box, and also it has to be at the time of a national emergency.
Isn't this great fun?
I love it.
was like,
we should get 20. We should get them to go round Oscar Wilde's
Do you think
thing
we could
3
do
times.
it?
I think
We've
we
not even got
Let's all
enough time
go.
to chat to you any
Yeah.
longer. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much, though, John. Thank you very much for coming in. We'll be
for having
talking more about ULEZ
Thanks, John.
and about women who've never, ever had a boyfriend. Hello, welcome back to Talk Radio, Talk TV. I'm Danielle Nicholls. This is Andre Walker, and over there
is Andrew Eborn. Hello.
Andrew Eborn, who was comparing himself to one of our guests because you've got a similar name. But we'll go there in a minute.
Come on to that.
I just want to really quickly go back. We've just said goodbye to one of our guests who told us that we were all tapophiles, and just in case, it tickled me. Just in case you want to know what that is, it's a tombstone tourist. It's someone an individual has a passion and enjoyment of cemeteries.
Dead interesting.
So right.
I love it.
They are interesting.
They are interesting.
I wouldn't go as far as to say passion.
We won't say you were passionate about it.
Well, he was passionate. If you go 3 times round Oscar Wilde's thing, passion, that's what he said.
I'm not passionate about it.
You're not.
Okay, anyway, ULEZ, I think we'll talk about, won't we? By the way, still with Andrew Eborn, our guest co-host, who's going to be with us until 9 o'clock.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Absolute joy.
It's good fun, isn't it?
Okay,
having a good night.
So, I want a bit of legal advice.
Oh, go on then.
Here we go.
Hang about, the clock's on.
I've been saying this to people. ULEZ has come in London. It's going to come in the rest of the country. I think they've got it in Glasgow and Brighton as well. Manchester desperate to do it. Well, rather, the Mayor of Greater Manchester desperate to do it. The public less so. And obviously Leeds has had all the infrastructure put in, but it hasn't yet launched.
Yes.
I think Bristol's done it as well. But there's different schemes that are slightly different right across the country. Anyway, the Blade Runners are destroying cameras. The Metropolitan Police say it's around 250. The Blade Runners themselves say it's 500. But anyway, am I right in saying that if you spot somebody damaging a camera, you're not legally obliged to report it to police?
You work on that sort of basis that if you spot a crime, it might be a good citizen's responsibility. There's no liability on you for doing that.
Because I have to say, whilst I would never, ever, ever encourage anybody to damage a ULEZ camera, by the way, that's not because I'm trying to help, and it's not even because I don't want people to break the law. It's actually because I don't want people to criminalise themselves.
And that's the thing as well. So if you're standing there applauding them, go, yes, then that could be encouraging them, and you've got problems on that sort of basis. So you need to look at both and make it make sense.
You just have to ignore.
Well, I don't know about ignore, but some people turn around and say criminal damage is criminal damage, and people get penalised for that sort of stuff. I don't know, it was a wonderful cartoon.
I've got to be honest with you, Andrew. Yes. I think what I would do if I saw the Blade Runners attacking a ULEZ camera, I think I would just walk past.
Okay, but
I think it's important, the advice that you've just given. If you say well done, potentially you've committed a crime.
So don't encourage crime is the short answer, in case we're not encouraging crime here on that sort of basis. But basically standing by and doing nothing, that's down to you and your citizens' responsibility. Okay. But there was an interesting thing, and just to put this in perspective, Matt said, I cut down a ULEZ camera, it fell sideways onto a school and the whole building collapsed. There you go, so you get both on that sort of basis. So I love it. There is a bit of humour in all of this. But I understand why people are doing it. They are outraged. It's become a political hot potato. It is a tax on the poor, and that is unfair. And if you look at the sort of cars that are being penalised, it's those who can't afford the new cars on that sort of basis.
Because if you're really rich and you've got a classic car, then you're all right, aren't you?
I've got a classic car and it's okay.
And by the way, just to explain where everybody's at, because Howard Cox is messaging about the Notting Hill Carnival. I'll read his statement in a minute. But I just want to say, first of all, Sadiq Khan wants to continue ULEZ. We think that Keir Starmer wants to bring it in most towns and cities, but he keeps flip-flopping about it. Susan Hall, the Conservative candidate, would remove the new zone. Howard Cox would abolish the lot.
There you go. Okay. And it is interesting. It will be the hot potato that people talk about. The car is another sort of silver bullet. They talk about how can we make that make sense. It's like abolishing inheritance tax, for example. You'll look for these silver bullets because that's what could win these elections. It's become a political hot potato, but I do think it's wrong. And I think the stats, we haven't got the full stats on that sort of basis. It is a tax on the poor.
I think it is. I think actually, on a serious note, I think it is a good move by Reform UK to have the head of Fair Fuel UK be their candidate for Mayor of London, because whilst I suspect, Reform UK's support principally comes from the Red Wall and places like that. I don't know. I've not seen the statistics. Actually, this is a totemic issue for the whole country.
Well, interestingly, you can straddle both camps. You get the Red Wall and the Red Corduroys, as I would call them. So you work on that sort of basis. That's the key. The car, if you ask the majority of the people, I know very, very few. It'd be interesting to hear people's views. I know very, very few who support ULEZ. And that's the interesting thing. So it's got to be a vote winner to turn around and say, we're going to put you first. It's an unfair tax, basically on the poor, as I say, and make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
Anything in life where the penalty is money.
Yes.
I don't understand how we can't see how unfair that is, because I've seen very nice Ferraris parked completely illegally on the basis that they can very much afford the parking ticket.
I can do that, that's okay.
And they just park it wherever they want, and they're not bothered about the parking ticket. So it isn't about stopping people from parking there. It's about saying if you're not rich enough, you can't do it.
And what's interesting as well, Danielle, you work on that sort of basis. A lot of the times these councils need the money from parking fines. It's rather like tobacco and so on and so forth. You need that income. So that's what we need to do. When we have these conversations, we shine more light and less heat.
But I've made this point before today. I live in a borough, the Royal Borough of Windsor, Maidenhead.
Lovely.
Where Maidenhead Town Hall charges the good people of Windsor 12 million a year in parking.
Yes.
And of course, they're financially reliant on it.
Of course.
In reality, the purpose of the parking scheme is not to make parking better. It's to raise money to fund. But of course, the point I continually make is then you find what happens is what happened in Greater Manchester. The Trafford Centre opens with 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 free car parking spaces, virtually direct access onto the motorway.
You're just closing down town centres.
Exactly.
You're closing down town centres. You're closing down any kind of main street, all that income. Do you know? Can I just tell a really tiny story that was from my perspective that might just change the way people see the car? So when I was younger, I lived in London, didn't have any money, was going to be a star, going to be famous in a pop group, lost my job and I was told I had to move out of this flat. I had nowhere to put my stuff. Obviously, I was using public transport, which was pretty great because I'd come from Manchester where it was rubbish and it was great in London, so I didn't think I needed to pass my driving test. I wasn't that bothered. I didn't have anywhere to put my stuff. I had nowhere to go. When I got my first car, it was like a slice of freedom.
Yes.
Even now, when my husband takes my car to be fixed or MOT'd or anything like that, we always have a row. And only through doing all the work that we've done, through unfortunately losing a child, all the psychology work that we've done, did I come to the bottom of the reason of why I was so angry whenever I didn't have a car. And it was because that was my freedom.
Of course.
Because no matter what, I could get home from somewhere. No matter what, even if you had to fall asleep in it for a few hours, but you had somewhere that was your space that you could put your stuff in, and it was my personal freedom and independence and safety. Now, it wasn't a particularly expensive car, and I know that was still privileged because I happened to then get a good job on CRTV, so I could buy one because I didn't even have the money to learn to drive at first. But nowadays, any car that is good enough to go in the ULEZ is not going to be a cheap car. It's not going to be £1,000 banger. It's not going to be.
No, it's a tax on the poor, and that has to be wrong. And you're so right to put it in perspective. Look at the damage that's going to happen to the high streets where people turn around and say, I can't afford to drive in anymore.
Yeah.
So there's going to not
it'll be cities for the rich again.
It'll
be cities for the rich, urban areas for
No. What will happen is what's happening in lots of places in central London. You can live in central London if you're either a millionaire or you're unemployed.
Yes.
But you can't be anywhere in between.
And that's so interesting because you only really see that in London.
Yes.
But by doing this, that is what will happen with many, many cities, because that is really only a London thing, that very rich, very poor
So I predict they will abolish it. I predict that it is a political hot potato.
So you think Sadiq loses?
I think on this one he will, because I've heard nobody, the great British public, turn around and say they want it.
But will he lose the election?
I think if we make this an issue and some of the other issues, absolutely, it's a really
the thing that's amazing about Sadiq Khan, and I worry about it, there's something I call the auction of piety, which is amongst all these devolved assemblies, if one of them does something crazy, then the next one wants to do something more crazy. So it might be, as an example, Sadiq Khan brings in a low emission zone, then Nicola Sturgeon or Humza Yousaf wants to bring in a national ultra low emission zone, and then Mark Drakeford decides that he wants to ban everything but electric cars, and they all go round and round and round, because of course it doesn't matter if they damage the economies in their areas, because Westminster pays for all of it. And so what worries me, Sadiq Khan is a terrible mayor of London. Everybody knows he can't do the job. Now, some people deny it, but everybody knows he's struggling pretty significantly. But the worse he is, the more electable he becomes, because fundamentally what he can always say is it's the government's fault. And remember, he's probably got 20 press offices in City Hall. Yeah. He'll have press offices, probably 30 at TfL, maybe 30 at the Metropolitan Police, maybe 30 at the fire service or whatever. So in every field, the Greater London Authority is constantly able to tell the public it's not their fault. So Sadiq really is doing as well as he is in polls because he's awful.
Well, and I'll tell you what's happening is what I said beforehand. We're holding out for a hero, and we're actually living in an ultra-low charisma zone with a lot of politicians. So if you get the politicians who've got charisma... Can you imagine
if someone who had a bit of something about them just
I reckon the three of us could run it. Well, you could be the day mayor and you could be the night mayor.
I want
we could split it. We could work
it's
on
the old William Hay joke.
It's got to be good. The old jokes are the old jokes, but it's got to be good. But you're right. I think the politics of personality is going to come to the fore. This is a hot potato. ULEZ people don't
as
want.
Well, people who have a car like that can always then try and earn a living. You can be a taxi driver, you can be a delivery driver. Yep. So it's always a way of having an income. Why would you try and tax people who want to go to work? They want to go to work.
Well, I have to say, I think in some respects, London is becoming quite a hostile environment to people who were born in London. I mean, there's no Cockneys left anymore, is there? That has been eradicated as a culture.
Well, I don't know. We still celebrate it. So you turn
it doesn't really exist.
We live in probably the best city in the world. We have the most diverse people. So Boris used to always make the speech that during the 2012 Olympics, when people came over, this is probably the only city in the world which can welcome people from any corner with people of their own nation, cuisine and everything. Makes it so great.
Well, I don't think it makes it so wonderful. The slight problem when you talk about multiculturalism, where you go cultural enrichment. Well, hang on a second. That assumes something which I do not accept, that every culture is equal. I don't believe that people who throw homosexuals off buildings are equal to us. I don't believe that people who believe in female genital mutilation are equal to us.
But do you not believe that everyone's entitled to believe what they want to believe?
I think if you believe in female genital mutilation, you're a savage.
And I think the principle of that, and those are massively extreme examples. And I have to say, Boris in his speech didn't make reference to either of those points. What he was talking about was the cultural great differences that we can celebrate and respect.
But the point is, what you are turning around and saying is, you're saying, so when you talk about cultural enrichment, there is an implication within that says British culture was not good enough to start with, ergo what we now want to do is enrich it with cultures from other countries. Now, where that gives me a real problem is this. When my family came to the United Kingdom from Greece, my other family came from Ireland, but that was part of the United Kingdom, the bit that they came from. They came here to be British. The whole concept now of multiculturalism, the whole concept of cultural enrichment is to say, you do not have to come here to be British, because British is inferior to where you've come from.
And I understand that perspective, but if you look at the whole of history, where do you stop? Because actually, British people are not really British. They came from over in Scandinavia. The Romans conquered this. They built us wonderful roads and so on and so forth. You need to look at that sort of principle. The point that we celebrate is the difference. And we are probably one of the most cosmopolitan things.
But why?
Well, no, because difference is important.
Well, no, nothing wrong with that, being accepting of different cultures.
I'm an advisor to the British Bangladeshi Caterers Association. I'm a big supporter of them. But the reality is that East London is now, the principal culture in East London now is Bengali. It is not Cockney.
Who would you get rid of?
Well, I wouldn't get rid of anybody. What you'd have to do is, you want to do the following thing. You want to stop unlimited immigration, because people will dissipate over time. There are no Huguenot enclaves anymore.
I think everyone thinks that unlimited immigration is a bad idea.
Most people support it.
For the idea, though, of the fact that at some point there is not going to be the resources to provide for the people, and then everybody will
look,
suffer.
we're going to have to stop it there, because this was a debate about ULEZ. I was out and about in London talking to people about ULEZ. Take it away. Do you think Sadiq Khan's attacking working class people?
There's a few words I'd like to say about him, but he's a useless.
What do you think of Sadiq Khan?
I think he's a.
Why?
Because of what he's just done, the ULEZ.
But surely you shouldn't mind the ULEZ, because taxis are exempt, aren't they?
Doesn't make no difference. I'm thinking of other people.
Oh, my God, I've seen your game show on the TV.
What do you think of the ULEZ charge?
The what?
The ULEZ charge.
What's that?
I can see you've got your congestion charging thing in there.
That. Yeah, I'm not from London, I'm from Wales.
Show me that. Show me that. So you've got in trouble already?
Yes.
You've been fined already?
I have.
Bloody hell. All right.
Thank you.
got an opinion on ULEZ? ULEZ charge. No. Chicken cottage van.
I've seen you on Talk TV.
On what?
The woke that was.
Can't even remember the name. Can't even remember the name. What do you think of Sadiq Khan?
Oh my God, he's awful. He needs to go.
Where does he need to go?
I don't know, anywhere. Down the toilet.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm not a driver either. I'm hungover today.
Right. What do you think of the ULEZ charge?
Good.
Is it good?
Nice.
Whoa! I'll race you! I'll race you!
I've seen you on TV.
Hey! What's your name, pal?
Timmy.
Okay, Timmy, listen, what do you think of the ULEZ charge?
Well, I really do not know what is really going on, but I think I really don't know what is going on.
Is the reason you like me because you don't know what's going on? Do you think it's hard now to be an ordinary working person in London?
Definitely.
Why?
Oh, because everything is becoming expensive now and salary is not increasing.
Look, get involved. Look, sit with me, sit with me, sit with me. Okay, hello. So you're currently on Talk TV, do not swear. What's her name?
Julie. I'll let Julie speak for herself.
Go on, Julie.
I'm Julie Brown. Hello.
Excuse me, sir. What do you think of the ULEZ charge?
I don't know, not speaking English.
Okay, what language are you going to pretend you can speak?
Romanian.
Face and play, da numa numaye, numa numaye, numa numa numaye, chi puntao, chi dragon started day. Hey, well done, well done.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break.
Okay,
that was brilliant.
We mentioned that was The Woke That Was is coming up later. It's coming up at 9 o'clock. By the way, I do want to say to you,
yes,
that Welsh chap, I mean, he was driving around in the ultra-low emission zone and the congestion charging zone.
I felt sick for him.
Not knowing. Now, he will be done for £100 a day for ULEZ if that car's not compliant.
It is terrible, and I think this is the problem.
So why will he be charged at £100 a day?
Because if you get it wrong, the fine is £100.
So it's rather like, if you don't pay, it's rather like the congestion charge. If you don't pay on time...
Don't get me started.
No, we don't want to get you started. We get you started because if you don't pay on time, then there are penalties, and that's the problem as well.
Oh!
And there wasn't one person there.
Do you know what? Shall we go for Dartford Crossing? Shall we start on that?
So Danielle...
Why can't you just give me somewhere where I can pay? Why? Why am I having to, remember, set an alarm in my phone before I get in the car to set off? So I hope I know already where I'm going, because then wherever I get there, I've got to remember that I owe £2.50. Just send me through a toll.
So, fantastic.
Sorry.
But it is easier. A public service announcement. It is easier. You can automate payments, which is part of the hassle. And also, I'll tell you the other thing which is unfair is that if you're touching on the rich bits, and if you live within the centre of London, as I do, you actually get a 90% discount on your congestion charge. So instead of paying that sort of bits and pieces, you get a 90% discount. So we need to do, but you can automate it, which saves the hassle of trying to do, and you can avoid the fines that way. But I still think it's wrong for all the reasons you mentioned.
But that chap, it's perfectly possible that he could have driven round for that week.
Yes.
Now, I think it only started on the Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
And not with malice, and not with being,
so
he could cheeky or anything.
He could receive a £400 fine.
He should get in touch with us, having your brilliant interview, and tell us what happened. And if people have got those horror stories, let's collate those and let's deal with this injustice. Because I think if we can use this show to highlight the injustice of the whole thing, I think we could make a difference.
Let me just say the Dartford Tunnel thing. One time, I was a day late, and they did just let me off and said I had to pay something like an admin fee of a tenner or something.
Okay, so Tracy says, I'm a woman of 56. I totally agree with Danielle about her car being her freedom and home, no matter what else happens. I've had those times. I need my car. It definitely is my freedom.
Thank you, Tracy. And as a woman as well, sometimes you go somewhere, you'll purposely drive because you'll think, well, I'm going to drive. I'm not going to have a drink. I'm safe. I can always get back no matter where I go from.
Okay.
People forget how much it's about your personal freedom. You
need it, absolutely.
Tony is in Lancashire. Tony, you're on Talk TV.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Tony.
It's the best programme ever. I've got this channel on 24/7.
Hey.
It's brilliant.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, Tony. Well done, Tony.
bloody lot of them. Best one going, this channel. Talk TV, can't beat it.
Thank you.
You can come again, Tony.
Stay on 24/7. I love it.
Well, sorry, was that all that we were going to get Tony to say? Okay.
So what do you want to say about ULEZ?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just a cash cow for the bloody government, isn't it? Just picking on poo again. Yep. And he's like, I'm watching a programme, Lee Anderson on GB News. Sorry, I do apologise.
No, it's okay. We'll let you watch them.
By the way, Tony, we like
Saturday night. You're here.
No, Tony, it's like Parliament. We call it the other place.
You should watch Plank of the Week instead. Apparently, Tony, get watching Plank of the Week. Go on.
But they're saying, so it's all right to pay £12 or whatever it is, destroy the bloody earth, whatever, fuck rich, and the poor can't, basically. Yeah. So they're kind of saying they'll take £12 off an old woman.
I know.
Yeah, £12.50. No, it's terrible.
If you can't afford, it's obvious. If you can't afford a car that's compliant, so it was.
But I give the example every single week, and I'm sorry to do it, but it's just because I know something about it. My dad lives in Goulburn in Greater Manchester. Now, as you know, for those of you familiar with the area, Culcheth is in Cheshire, and Haydock is in Liverpool, in Merseyside. Now, if all three of those brought in a ULEZ charge, my dad would end up having to pay £12 to drive in Manchester, £12 to go to the local train station, that's £24, £12 to visit his grandchildren. He could be on £36 a day just in order to go no more than 2 miles.
Well, what he's supposed to do is go to his bank, get a load of debt, buy a car he can't really afford.
Right.
And if he can't afford it, then he just has to stay in his house and rot.
And what they will say to that is, you've got one big ULEZ zone, then you're not going in and out of the zone. But you're right. At the moment,
I mean, I can never say, Andrew, I can never say it without putting on Northern Irish accent.
Go on, then.
What about the border communities? What about the border communities?
No, you're right. We all agree that it's wrong. I haven't heard anybody, even with your brilliant interviews, turning around and saying, and Tony agrees, don't you, Tony?
No, we can't talk to Tony anymore. He can hear us. But what have we got coming up next?
We've got the rise of women who have never had a boyfriend.
Ooh.
That's me.
Okay, this is Saturday Night Talkaway. No, I'm sorry. I'm saying
a quick paper shuffle. Then,
no, I'm saying hello.
We look like we were doing
No. I'm saying hello and welcoming people back because you're leading this debate, right? About women who.
It's fun. I love.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'll tell you what we've got to do. One thing we always forget to do is just to remind people to follow us on social media. There's loads of clips that come out. There's at Talk TV. There's at Loud Danielle and at Andre JP Walker, and also
at Andrew Eborn at Octopus TV.
Now the other thing I want people to do is follow Real Woke Wabbit, because the Woke Wabbit is now taken to social media. Unfortunately, Woke Wabbit itself was taken, but in honour of Donald Trump, we forced the Woke Wabbit to have real Woke
well
Wabbit.
Done.
Oh, real.
Good for you.
God, yeah, I like it. Right.
Now your segment.
Right, okay. So we've been talking about this. The rise of women who've never had a boyfriend. Young women and men typically say that they are seeing each other rather than dating. And there's a rise of the 30-something women who've never actually had a boyfriend. This is quite shocking. We've got our guest joining us. We've got Sarah Brill. Is that right? Are we talking with them together or just one at a time? Is it just Sarah? Hi, Sarah. Can you hear us?
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's okay, thanks for having me.
From your very stylish room, wherever you are. It looks very trendy behind you there. So, Sarah, tell us about this. What's going on?
Well, I think part of it is to do with the way that dating is these days. You know, a lot of it takes place on apps, and less people are meeting face-to-face, which I think makes it a lot more challenging to meet people.
This is where my wellness centre comes in, Sarah. I've got an idea for what I want to do, like a wellness centre, and it's a bit like a community centre, and everybody has to, like, join in. All right, I know what you're going to say.
Didn't say anything.
You're going to...
Didn't say anything.
I'm sorry for being nice about things. Denny, you there as well? We've also got another dating coach. We've got Denny Smith. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, thank you so much for joining us. What do you see? Is it because of the way people are dating at the moment, Danny?
I think it's a combination of things, actually. I think women have been busy. They've been busy pursuing careers, buying their own houses or flats, travelling. Just in general, they've been busy. Obviously, lockdown didn't help at all. You know, you couldn't meet people and go out. So I think that had a real effect on people as well.
It's interesting that you say that, because I married a footballer, and footballers typically have kids young. I know it's a weird thing, but it's just that weird little pocket of they do. If you look, no, what I mean is,
no, we all know why. We all know why. They're pumped up, aren't they?
You've only got so long to earn the money. That's why.
Your husband's going, come on, love. I've had a good match today. I want to have a good evening as well.
He started pestering me super early. I did an interview about this yesterday.
What was the nature of the pestering?
He wanted a baby.
No, but I mean, was it he wanted a baby, or did he want...
Look, we can all practice making babies, and babies don't arrive.
Oh, I see, okay.
He wanted a baby, yes.
Right, okay. Sorry, that was less fun than I was expecting.
I'm sorry. I bought him a dog. We got 2 years.
No, don't go there. Don't go there.
I got 2 years of him trying to train this dog to wee outside, and with it scratching and ruining our house.
Do you know,
it put him off for 2 years.
My mother owned a dog that used to run round outside squealing with pain, and when you let it in, it peed.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, was it a small dog? They have really small bladders. They can't control it.
She put it out to do a wee, and it used to sit outside.
And it would go outside, and then would come back and wee inside. Good heavens.
I didn't want to wee in the cold. So, Sarah, what do we do? What are we going to do to target this problem?
Oh gosh. Well, I think a lot of people need to. I think there's a lot of shame and guilt around being single, and I think part of the problem is people aren't confident enough to step out and say, you know, their honest, authentic truth, whether they have been single, whether they've had a partner, right? But I think people just need to be a bit more confident, you know, put themselves out there a bit more. And
but is it not, can I ask you this, Sarah? Is it not a situation now where it seems to me that in student unions and all that sort of thing, now it's almost a bit crass to walk up and chat somebody up, isn't it?
Apparently men are very nervous of doing that.
Yeah, and I think this has come about because, you know, of what we were saying before about people maybe having a lot of shame around it. So there's sort of the idea of rejection feels a little bit awkward. So people don't want to put themselves out there because there is a fear of being rejected.
But there's also an assumption, isn't there? We say, what is the problem? Sometimes people don't want to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and that's okay as well, isn't it?
100%.
100%.
I just worry. I tell you what I worry about. I worry about the fact that, you know, look, when I was younger, and by the way, I just want to say, you know, we're the Stone Age compared to kids now, and we're not that old, right? But it's just the nature of living in a modern industrial revolution. That's the way it is. But to me, you know, if you want to chat somebody up in the old days, you had to actually sort of sniff round them almost physically. But now, of course...
You did kind of, if you think about it, you used to follow, see where they lived,
and what, I'll tell you what's interesting as well, is now that AI is taking over on the people have virtual girlfriends, they have AI girlfriends.
Oh, this is madness.
But also,
don't get me started
in Japan, when I go down to Cannes and launch different formats, there's something with TBS who did Ninja Warriors and Takeshi's Castle. They did a format called Love by AI. And what that would do, it would basically pair you with your ideal person. It would also give you things to say, so you can tick the boxes. The problem is, Denny, I can understand why people would be hugely embarrassed, because you've got your picture on your Tinders or whatever it is, right? And then, you know, if you try and walk up to somebody, it might be that person has never been chatted up before, and then when you do chat them up and they reject them, it might be that it's so rare to do that suddenly they're, you know, mention it to their friends. It's all very embarrassing, and then you just look like a complete idiot. I can understand why people are afraid to attempt to date.
Well, I think that's why apps are actually a good thing. I know people, they get quite a bad press, but, you know, they can be a really good thing because you're in control and you're doing it from the comfort of your own home, and you can pick and choose who you want to connect with. So you can take your time connecting over texting rather than somebody just walking straight up to you face to face and being rejected.
As I said, I'm well into all this. I listen to a podcast.
What, dating?
Yeah, I'm just intrigues me. All of it intrigues me. I listened to a podcast that said about how you need to be more specific on these apps, because it was basically saying you want this kind of person, you want that kind of person, and if you narrow it right down, there's probably only going to be a handful of people who suit. But rather than wasting your time with a load of people who do not suit, you're best to bide your time.
The problem is, if I was internet dating, I'd have to find someone who was interested in a fat, obnoxious,
You're not. Why do you say
rude ginger bloke.
Well, that's not true, because you're not any of those things.
None of those sort of things.
This is all a character. He's a nice guy, this guy.
Very nice guy. But both you brilliant dating coaches, Sarah and Danielle, what are your best tips then for people to do dating, and what are the successful lines they should be using?
Sarah first.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I think people just need to be a bit more open-minded. You know, I think there's a lot of preconception. Sorry?
Dressing up.
Don't go like this. Ignore him, Sarah.
I think there's a lot of preconceptions, and often we pass judgment on people. We might miss out on opportunities that might actually lead somewhere, but we might shut it down.
So be open-minded. So
oh my goodness, I totally agree with this, because it's only recently my husband found out he was actually a rebound boyfriend. So...
Is that right?
Well, don't say it on the telly.
I know, but he knows now, so it's okay. I can do.
But hang on,
Sarah, I totally agree. We did. Sometimes you need to be a bit talked into it. Sometimes as well.
Well, that was my technique, baby. But Denny, what are your techniques then?
Well, I'm not a dating coach. I own a dating app.
You're an app.
So tell us how do we get success? What's your app for a start? Promote your app.
It's called Geek Meet Club.
Gimmick Meet Club.
No,
here we go.
Geek.
Come on. Let's have a look at it.
Come on, let's find it. So say
by
it
the way,
Danny.
Geek Meet Club.
I should be on that because I'm a gaming geek and I'm also.
There you go.
I should be on that.
The GMC, the General Medical Council.
I'm a bit nerdy.
I bet they get confused.
Oh no!
Geek. Is the GMC there? Is this it?
Matt's getting me all wrapped up with the complexities of this.
It's very difficult, isn't it? There we go.
God, how many are there?
There are loads of dating apps. So what distinguishes you from the rest of the people then?
So go on. How do you get success then?
So basically being honest.
Well done.
Yeah, just being honest, putting your honest photo, honest profile, and being very clear about your intentions.
So an unfiltered photo.
Yeah. Oh, and recent. Yeah, recent and clear and smiley.
It's 1986 recent.
Is that what it says?
Do you know what? I can't remember what I did. Something recently in the audition for something. They wanted like you say, it had to be unfiltered and a recent photograph.
Yeah, but that's not unreasonable, is it?
No, it's not really. But we're so terrified because we're all so judged on our appearance.
And that's the problem, because you still put a bit of makeup on, you still make sure the lighting is
But I actually think there's something that's really changed for men. I'm going to be completely honest about this. When I went to school, blokes were not interested in all the beauty and the preening and all this sort of thing, right? It just wasn't within our psyche. Now, I admit, I went to a Catholic all-boys school in Liverpool, and it was probably out of date.
No, I agree, because I find a guy who's less preened much more attractive. Yeah. Much more attractive.
So I just wonder now whether all the apps have just made it all about looks.
And social media has as well, because people only show their best life on social media, and it causes all sorts of problems. So I think you've got to be right. Being honest has got to be great for any relationship.
Yeah, but who wants that though? I mean,
honesty.
Can you imagine? I've not got my own teeth. I've got that thing on my neck's not cleared up yet.
No, but people are going to discover that anyway. So why not? I mean, you're not going to show the worst bit of you. You can show the best of you.
Okay, if you want to phone in quickly, if you've got a question for the dating expert.
Oh, yes, please.
02244 499 1000.
Any singles out
there? By the way, I've got to say one thing about dating.
Yes.
I've got to say one thing about dating. I've got a very good friend of mine called Gareth Knight.
Oh, this is funny.
And him and his wife, Emily, they're celebrating their 13th wedding anniversary by watching the show.
Oh, well done.
Happy wedding anniversary.
There you go. Oh, great. Happy anniversary.
But they got married in Las Vegas, and it was really interesting, actually. I think a lot of people now are turning around and saying, I'm not spending spending 50,000, 80,000 on a wedding when, you know, you just got to drag in all these people.
And you could get married by Elvis, you could do that sort of stuff. Harley Davidson Cafe, I know people who got married there as well. So absolutely, do what does, because what happens is most people don't want to go to somebody else's wedding. If you can make a party of the whole thing...
The best idea for a wedding is actually what Pakistani people do, which is this. They have the thing in the mosque where the close friends and family do it, but then what they do is that they have a load of food and a load of drinks, obviously non-alcoholic drinks, but then you pop in for as long as you want to pop in, right? So you don't sit there all day. So what you do is you might go, right, I'm going at 2 o'clock. Well, Andrew, are you going at 2 o'clock? Yeah, you're going. So we'll all go at 2 o'clock. We'll all pay our respects, say hello, give our present in, have some food, have some drink, stay as long as we can be bothered, and then leave.
And isn't that better? Talking about honesty, isn't that better to turn around and be honest?
Yes, because you're right. Weddings, the worst thing is that they go on all
and it's so stressful for the couple, you know, and the amount they have to spend on weddings now is crazy.
And we didn't do that. We had a late wedding, super late wedding. We got married at 4 o'clock. That is late, innit, nowadays?
It is late, yes.
Yeah, we got married at 4, and we had it in a restaurant with the similar kind of feel. Don't have to all sit down.
But isn't that better?
By the way, we don't want to ignore our experts. We have got to call them. But first of all, before I do that, I just want to say to Sarah very quickly that. Deborah in Seacroft has contacted us and said, I'm a 59-year-old and I've never had a boyfriend, but I would happily take you, Ian, Kevin, Mike out on the town for a good knees up and a curry. Do you think that actually part of it is that women are not dating because men are not fun enough?
I mean, well, like the other lady, I was just saying, I'm not a dating coach either. So
go on, Sarah, tell us who you are. Sorry, we got someone else. Go on, Sarah,
Stop. I'll tell you what we'll do.
Who are you, Sarah?
Why don't we take our running order and just give up on that?
Sarah, enlighten us. Who are you exactly?
That's a waste of time. So who are these people? Can you imagine if they just said, well, actually, I'm a territorial army officer, and somebody else said, I'm a lawyer.
I just phoned up about ULEZ.
Yes, but the problem... Sorry, let me just get some order in the studio. The slight problem is, in my ear, they're saying, put the callers through. The problem is, we're now putting them through to dating experts who aren't dating experts. Right, so Pat, have you got any questions that you would put to a dating expert if we had any questions?
Will help.
Pat in London, come on, Pat.
At least one of us is. No, I mean, I am single and I'm in my 30s. So I think, you know, I've done a lot of self-work myself on, you know, personal development and feeling good about myself and getting the courage and, you know, living my best life, right? So yeah, it is about finding someone who has the values that align.
Right, well, I've got some bad news for you. We've run out of time for the call.
Oh, Pat.
That is the biggest shambles since
Can I not help Pat?
Well, we can help Pat. Did Pat have a question? We'll find somebody for Pat if you want somebody. But it's also okay.
Hello and welcome back. Yes, there we go.
It was fun, that bit.
They were dating coaches, dating experts, or whatever they were. Right, anyway, thank you for your calls in with all your questions, none of which we got to. Anyway, onwards and upwards. I believe things are going well, and that's the important thing.
They are. We've got another interview, but this definitely is not with a dating expert. Let me just make that very clear. It's Richie Neville from the boy band Five.
Love Five.
Hi, Richie, can you hear us?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Richie, can I just start with this?
Five.
I've got to do it, right? 5 bad boys with the power to rock you. Blow your mind, so you gotta get into 5. What you waiting for? If you want a 3, 2, 2, 1, let's do it. Sorry. I've waited all this time to do that.
I know, that's all good. Do you know what? And it's so, it's sort of equally embarrassing and fun to be a part of a band that started a song with 5 bad boys with the power to rock you. Wow.
It's wonderful, is what it is.
Listen, you can always console yourself that you weren't the Blazing Squad.
Hey.
Well, you know, they're not so bad. They're not so bad. We know the Blazing Squad. There's no beef there.
Now, I believe, Richie, you are actually a fan of Talk TV. Is that right?
Yeah, I love Talk TV. Absolutely, yeah. I love anything where people, you know, give their opinions, and you know, we're living in an age where, you know, it's sort of you're not even allowed to have an opinion these days, and I think it's important that we have debates and talk about stuff.
Exactly, and sometimes having that conversation can change people's mind, and that's exactly what it's about, isn't it? It's having the power to say, do you know what, I never saw it from that point of view before.
That's what people say to me all the time.
Richie, what kind of thing are you up to now at the moment? Because are you doing all like the festival circuits and that at the moment?
So yeah, we get out, we do festivals. I mean, certainly around Europe. We've got a tour in Australia next year. Like, this is with Five.
Yeah.
We've got a sort of Scandinavian tour in Norway next year in summer. So it just keeps rolling. You know, like, luckily, I'm from a band that has had, you know, quite a few hits, and people still want to see it. And you know what? Like, if, you know, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but we do put on a good show.
Oh, it's a great show.
Got a lot of energy and stuff like that. So, yeah, it just keeps rolling along, and I feel really privileged to be able to...
Good songs last, that's why, Richie.
Now, thank you.
That's why Dick-a-Dum by what's his name? Dick-a-Dum Dum by what's his name did so well.
Yes, the one
Tom O'Connor.
Exactly.
Des O'Connor.
Tom O'Connor is brilliant as well.
Dick-a-Dum Dum by Des O'Connor. You know, a classic will never die.
Yeah, a bit of Engelbert Humperdinck.
Oh, we love a bit of Engelbert.
I met him when he was fully spent. The Eurovision year.
Now, Richie, things unfortunately haven't always gone smooth for you. I find this with anybody. Look, anybody who's had any kind of life has had upset, has had trauma. But your story, particularly, I'm talking about your house fire. This is really scary because I have a friend who lost her sister in a very, very similar way to this by leaving a candle on.
Yeah.
What was your story, Richie? You tell it.
Yeah, so it was a crazy event. I was woken up by my partner at the time. We were tired that night. We'd gone to bed. You know, we'd sort of shut the house down, and I was sort of woken up with a nudge, and a babe, can you smell smoke? And typical sort of man-woman thing. I was thinking, and the minute the air hit my nose, I sort of sat bolt. I was like, big time, I can really smell the smoke, you know? Mm. So, I opened the door and I was just met with a black wall of smoke that I could see 1 inch into. And my partner's kids were down the hallway and asleep in another room. So she just sort of broke down and was like, oh, the girls. And I don't, it's just one of them moments where you just go, wow, just dive through.
Wow.
Yeah, grabbed the girls and sort of bundled them into the bedroom because I didn't know where it was coming from.
Yeah,
or anything.
so you don't know where to say.
Richie, can I ask you how you found the girls? Because I've been told by fire officers that quite often children will hide from the fire. So unfortunately, children every year will die because people don't know to look under the bed or in the wardrobe for them.
No, so thankfully they are girls. They were kids that like the door closed when they go to sleep. You know, some kids like the door closed.
Yeah, my kids have the door open. Yeah.
Yeah. So they like it closed. And my daughter, who thankfully wasn't there that night, likes it slightly open. Yeah. So it was one of those kind of fatalistic things.
Wow.
Which obviously
God, you've given me shivers. You've given me shivers, Richard.
Yeah. So I just, and I always do this thing when I go to bed, where I kind of turn the lights off and I sense my way like Mr. Miyagi or something.
Oh, dear. You're not scared of like a machete killer coming out? Why did we get like that? Like, the house is perfectly safe, but the minute you turn all the lights off, suddenly you think there's someone hid somewhere.
No, I kind of like that. Like, I kind of like the fear or whatever. So it was like I'd been in training for years for this one moment. So wow. I found the door and I don't know, it was like go gadget arms. I just grabbed both of them by the scruff of the neck and ran and just threw them in. And it was cute because the youngest, she sort of did a gambol into the room as we bustled the door closed, and she was like, are we in trouble?
Oh, like as if she'd done something wrong because of the way you'd snatched her.
Yeah, she just been woken up and kind of like, what's going on, you know?
But it is a really good point to test that and to say, look, if we lost all the lights and everything else, how would we find our way? I think what you've done is brilliant. So good advice.
Yeah, brilliant. I could chat all night, Richie. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. I'm glad you're a fan of the show. Hey. It's always good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And of course, you can't help but love Five. So if you get the chance to watch them, go and see them.
Okay, we're joined now by the man, the myth, the legend, the Woke Rabbit.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. It's nice to meet you, Andrew. I've never.
See you.
What's your ex? Let's be honest, Twitter, but we have to say ex. What's your ex address?
At Real Woke Wabbit. I decided to download it. Essentially, I've noticed Twitter is a very right-wing place now. It used to be great, but then Elon let all the hardliners back on, like Donald Trump. So I've decided to restore balance. I've decided to make it more left-wing again.
Okay, and presumably you're very, very happy this week with the ULEZ coming in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can already feel my lungs more
clean.
Breathing.
Yeah. So don't go on the tube then, because you'll be
I
back
use
dirty
that. Well, I
again.
use the tube anyway.
Oh,
okay, so Woke Rabbit, what's coming up on That Was the Woke That Was?
Right, well, we're covering the new Disney film Cinderfella, or Cinderella.
Oh, yes.
The hospital that's made all the nurses learn 150 genders.
150?
I've been learning some of them already.
Okay, how many are you?
I'm all of them and none of them at the same time.
Why's that?
I just feel like it.
Oh, okay, fine.
Obviously.
Fine, you're just self-defining as everything.
Exactly. What else? Obviously, ULEZ. And we're joined by Lance Foreman, the Fishman, and Andrew Bridgen, who I believe was kicked out of the Conservatives for being too right-wing.
Okay, well, you need to get your skates on.
Yes, I need to.
And they're very eco-friendly, so that's fine. Get your skates on and get downstairs. Go, go, go.
Go, go, go.
Underneath the camera, there we go.
Okie dokie. And I'm going to have to run in a minute because obviously That Was the Woke That Was is live. If you believe that, you believe anything. Thank you so much to our guest.
It's a real pleasure. Congratulations.
Our guest co-host, Andrew Eborn.
Because it's 1 year. I
It's our first anniversary party.
It's gotta be good. Hurrah!
Okay, thank you so much, Danielle. I will see you again.
Thank you, Andre.
7 o'clock Saturday night. And we've got Andrew Bridgen and Lance Foreman coming up on That Was the Woke That Was. It's the first anniversary episode. I'm going to run down there right now.